Welcome to So What's It Actuary About? I'm your host, Margie McKechnie, and I, along with my wide array of guests, hope to help you better understand and weather the wonderful world of actuarial science. Hello, and welcome to today's episode. We are joined by MJ, the fellow actuary, whose actual name is Michael. But thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me here, and yeah, looking forward to it.
So, standard question, tell us about yourself. Why actuarial science? Give us a bit of background.
Perfect. I'm born and raised in Johannesburg, so it was quite cool to walk up these stairs and see UCT and how much more beautiful UCT is. I always think, how do the students study here when the setting is so beautiful?
It is incredible.
You got the mountains and the beach, and Joburg, we had traffic and Hertz, so it was easy to stay there at the library. Studied actuarial science at the University of Hertz. Moved to Cape Town here in 2014.
Okay.
And been working, I guess, you could say the wider fields or the non-traditional fields. Like I say, since 2014. So it's been 10 years.
Sure.
10 years since
Happy decade.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's another thing, like walking here and seeing the students and being like, yeah, everyone does look a lot younger than I remember being at these places. Why actuarial science? Our lecturer used to always tell us that there were the 3 M's on why people became an actuary.
Yes.
It was either for the money, because they were good at maths, or because they said, my uncle kind of did it. So it's those kind of 3 things. You're either driven by the maths, the money, or like there was that family, encouragement on it. And I had a situation where my mother was a maths teacher, so I had to do well at school for maths because
What goes without saying?
it was
a point to family pride.
Family pride. I remember being really young, and mom would go through the multiplication tables.
Yeah,
I couldn't only go outside once I'd done the whole table.
It's DNA now.
And also I had an older brother, and so when we would do homework together, I was always being exposed to the maths 3 years from what I was currently doing.
Got you.
So that also kind of gave me a bit of an unfair advantage, because I kind of could always see what was coming, see his textbooks and that. So I did really, really well at maths, and we had a family friend who, I think it was his brother-in-law, was a very successful actuary.
Okay.
And they said, oh, you're good at maths, you should talk to Andrew. He makes a lot of money doing actuarial science.
Yeah.
And I remember this guy, he said something to me which took me so off guard. It was like, wow, did not expect someone to say this to me. Because I said, oh, what are your thoughts on actuarial science? And, excuse me, this is a bit graphic, but he said it would be more fun to take a hot poker and stick it through my eye than study actuarial science.
Could be.
So that was the advice I was given.
And yet you still chose it.
Before you can become old and wise, you have to be young and foolish. So it almost motivated me. I was almost really ooh, is this that difficult, or is it that challenging?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what actuarial science was. I mean, I went in expecting to do physics because it's
a science.
Because it's a science.
It's a
actuarial science. And I mean, even the word actuarial, I would later look it up. It's completely made up. It's just
it doesn't really tell you all that much.
If you had a subject like earth science, it'd be like, oh, okay, we're going to study rocks and mountain formation, geography, that kind of stuff. Yeah. It gives into what it is. Or accounting science, all these, that the word means
kind of indicates,
yes. Whereas actuarial, it was a made-up term. I think it was that word Edward wrote.
That's right.
He needed a position for their insurance company that they were forming, and he loved the Romans so much that he only spoke Latin to his poor daughter. And this is in England, 18th century.
As one does.
And so he thought, why don't we use this term actuary, which was in the Roman Senate, they would have someone who would just take down notes. Like a secretary.
Yeah. It's derived from the same origin.
And that's how we got out. Because the actuary was originally just supposed to be that person in the corner who took down the notes and did, the calculations.
Yeah.
And then William Morgan, who was one of the first to take on this role, he was like, no, this is actually a position of power and influence because I get to determine, the reserves and the price. pricing
and the trajectory in many ways.
And so, there needs to be a professional conduct around this role. And so William Morgan would, develop the profession and the ethics around it. But it was Edward Rowe who kind of gave the term that stuck.
And we've been struggling with that term ever since.
And we've been struggling ever since, because like I say, it sounds cool, actuarial science. But it was weird. When I came to Cape Town, I was very much aware of my Joburg accent. Hence why I think I went with by MJ, because when I first came here, I would refer to myself as Michael.
Michael.
That's in Joburg, especially I'm from the East End.
Okay.
So we don't say nine, we say nine. We roll our vowels. And so I think the way I was saying actuarial science, people were hearing agricultural science. So everyone thought I was a farmer. People would be like, they'd ask me like, did you first, teach yourself? And then like this weird question on farming would come up. And I'd be like, that's an interesting question. I don't know the answer.
Yes, seems a bit left field.
But okay, we'll try and attempt it. But so it's an interesting term, actuarial science. So I went in completely blind, had no idea what it was. It was very much, listening to my elders.
Yeah.
Although my mother was very much against it. She's like, don't do it, Michael.
Really?
She's like, it's too difficult. I'm like, what? She's like, no. When she studied maths at university, and so she had some classes with the actuaries back there.
Of course, because they do maths as part of their studies.
And she was just like, you know what? They had no fun. They had no social life. They were like the nerds of campus. So she was like, don't do it. She's like, do something like your brother. And I was actually, my brother did accounting, and I was kind of like, my dad was a lawyer, and I was like, oh, maybe law. My dad's like, no, you're too emotional for law. And after crying,
you got a lot of feedback here.
I got a lot of feedback from the parents, and after crying, I realized, proving my dad's point. So maybe
I'm a crier as well.
So, law. Because I'm absolutely fascinated. I think this is why what's lovely about actuarial science is how it pivots from being very mathematical to more judgment, and almost like what a lawyer would do in the later subjects. So I actually enjoyed the second part of my studies a lot more than the prior part.
Yeah, it was very similar. Like when you had that strategy that would come into it, and that kind of connectivity, which didn't always seem was the case in the sort of pure technical subject.
Like I remember seeing that S angle N formula and just like not getting it. Like I got the A, I got the present value of an annuity,
future value, like,
but I was like the future. The future. Like what is this?
How mystical.
And like knowing, when it was in advanced, or it was weird how that stuff in the early times tripped me up.
Yeah.
Of course, looking back now, it's like, oh, Michael, why did you get it? It was so straightforward.
Yeah.
But when you're in that moment, the maths was, I could picture the hot iron of the poker sticking in my eye and being like,
I feel
that does seem like more fun than this right now. But that to answer the question, I think part of it was because I'd been told it was this hot poker metaphor. I wanted the challenge. I had done very well at school.
Yeah.
Because I almost turned studying into like a sport back then.
Okay.
Like my school had
gamified it.
I did. They had
it's amazing when you gamify this.
Yeah, they had like a leaderboard on your marks, and there was a prize in matric for for each subject there was an award.
Yes.
So I was trying to be
various metrics that you were tracking yourself against.
I didn't want to just be the top student overall. I wanted to be the top student in every single subject.
Granularity and aggregates, I like it.
Of course, I missed it for Afrikaans. It's languages, me and languages just, I can barely speak English properly. So I didn't even get an A for Afrikaans. I remember I got 75%, and I was so excited.
That's amazing.
About myself, especially because I'd failed the prelims.
Oh, wow. That's a massive increase.
I had the two tests mixed up. There was begripstoets and
oh, my word, when you prepared for the wrong one.
Well, I didn't even know what the one was and so...
Oh, dear. Oh, well.
So I tried to learn Afrikaans in like 6 months, to get that. But I think so. There was definitely, and we sometimes joke, we call it arrogant science. I think there was a lot of arrogance that pushed me towards actuarial science to be like, ooh, I'm a smart kid. Let me do this. I remember sitting down in class the one day, feeling very proud of myself because I was one of the IEB top 50 students. I had one of the highest marks for IT in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I was smart.
Yeah.
And I'm busy boasting as one does when one's young to the kid next to me. And I remember him taking out his BlackBerry because we had BlackBerries.
Yes. Oh, no,
and he shows me this video, and it's him getting interviewed by Channel E News for being the number one student in the country. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm definitely...
Can we still beat you in IT though?
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm in the Premier League now.
Yeah, exactly.
From the 10th division, this is the real deal.
Yeah, it's F1.
And yeah, it was kind of, it was crazy because at school I was used to being the top student. Mm-hmm. Now I was that student who I think only passed because of the bell curve. So every year they're probably like, we need so many people to go through. Let's just bump Michael through.
Yeah,
kind of.
Which is a difficult transition, right?
Yes.
Because that was something I struggled with, where you kind of feel like you're the top dog, and then you join the league of the top dogs. And you're like, I'm no longer the top dog. I'm just an average dog. And that's quite a difficult thing, like a mental shift as well. And the way that you view yourself and sort of your identity and your value, like a lot of things you have to recalibrate there to an extent.
Well, you have an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Your whole life you've been grown up being told that you're smart.
You're the best.
Yeah, you're the best.
Yeah.
I was coming from school where my mom told me, when they did a psych evaluation, because I'm a December baby.
Yeah.
It's like, should he be put in that year or wait a year? And they're like, no, your child's operating like 3 years above, his age and this and that. And, getting all these awards at school, my identity was, I'm smart. Mm. You now fail in an exam, and it's like,
well, I was a not.
But enough, I'm not smart, then what am I?
Yeah.
Like my identity was like, I'm nerdy, but it's fun because I'm smart. You take the smart away from that, and then you're like,
and I'm just nerdy.
You look like a loser. You're like, what? So I think that's why failure for an actuarial student hits so much harder than for, other people who may have experienced that at school. Of course, failure always sucks and it's always difficult. But
for an actuarial student, it's like delayed to a degree. Where some people experience that quite early, even at school, etc. But for an actuarial student and the caliber of your average actuarial student, it only really comes when you're faced with actuarial science.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing to kind of wear that.
I remember getting upset because I didn't get over 80% for the first maths exam. I only got mid-70s. And I was like, and already I was feeling a bit like...
And a bit uncertain. And
a little bit insecure. And then, of course, when that first failure came, it was like, oh my gosh, this is
difficult.
Yeah.
So let's talk to that kind of journey. So how was the journey at university? I was something to it, so can kind of, I'm sure we have similarities in that. And so you had that journey at Wits, and then also what was your decision making with regard to what you were going to do after you had finished your studies? Can you just talk through that pathway?
So I was again very blessed and privileged to have an older brother. Yeah. So my brother, he's 3 years older than me. So while I was at school, I was seeing the university journey also unfolding for my brother.
Okay.
And, he gave me this great advice. He said, listen, university is not like what you see in the movies. It's not just, it's not just parties and girls and, having fun. Mm-hmm. He says it's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So I went in with the right attitude. I went in with the right mindset, okay, so many hours at the library, so many hours studying, this is my whole kind of schedule. So I hit the ground running, but I still always kind of felt myself like a little bit, trailing behind. I was never where I wanted to be. I wanted to always be getting top marks and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And now I was, in the 60s, 50s kind of zone. So that was difficult. But no, I kept pushing through, I would also take lectures in my car. So I was driving to Wits. Mm-hmm. And because I live, out in the East Rand, mm-hmm. It was a good 40 minutes, there and back, which was great for a lecture. So I choose university. I got lectures from Yale. So
okay.
And it was so weird how behavioral economics, second year at Yale, was very similar to like first year AXI. They were talking about financial markets, and how the time value of money and all of these things. And what was cool about those lectures is that they were given during 2007, 2008, while the whole financial crisis was unraveling. And I would later on do the SERA qualification, which was a designation created because of that whole recession crisis. So it was really cool to kind of hear firsthand how, I guess I could use the word, how ignorant the academia was, because they would be like, oh my gosh, something is happening at Bear Stearns, we're not really sure yet, or I'm sure they're going to bounce back. These are like the little comments they would be making during the lectures. So that's what so much, we look back and like, why did they have such exposure, and why did they, hindsight,
perfect,
that
2020,
that whole kind of idea. But I learned a lot, and I think that gave me like a huge advantage as well, was listening to these lectures on the way